It's Godzilla vs. Anguirus in the first of many sequels to Ishiro Honda's 1954 classic, here on the Atomic Lizards podcast.
Hello and welcome to Atomic Lizards. We're a trio of friends podcasting about the Godzilla franchise and other films we love. I'm Miranda, the film fanatic.
I'm Udi, the de facto film expert.
And I'm Dan, the kaiju extraordinaire.
And today we're talking about Godzilla Raids Again.
Godzilla Raids Again is about two fishing scout pilots who make a horrifying discovery when they encounter a second Godzilla alongside a new monster named Anguirus. Without the weapon that killed the original, authorities attempt to lure Godzilla away from the mainland. But Anguirus soon arrives and the two monsters make their way towards Osaka as Japan braces for tragedy.
The film was released in 1955, only 6 months after the original film was, and is directed by Motoyoshi Oda. Eiji Tsuburaya returns to be in charge of the special effects. The film stars Hiroshi Koizumi, Setsuko Wakayama, Minoru Chiaki, and Takashi Shimura, with Hayu Nakajima as Godzilla and Katsumi Tezuka as Anguirus.
Alright, so what did we think about this movie?
Why don't you start, Miranda?
Okay, so I watched Godzilla Raids Again and I watched Gigantus the Fire Monster, the American version. And I thought it was a pretty decent movie. The fact that it was made in 6 months is quite amazing. Pre, post, present production. Like, it's a lot of work to do in 6 months. I found it a bit slow at times, but I think for the first kaiju versus kaiju movie, it's actually kind of entertaining to watch. And generally, it's not the worst movie I've seen, and it was pretty entertaining. So,
Yeah, I mean, as a sequel to the 1954 film, it's not really. I don't feel like it was really anything special. I mean, obviously the original 1954 film probably made a lot of money, so they probably were just, Toho was probably just like, all right, you got to make a sequel. The first film was a huge money maker. We need to make another one, so we can make even more money. So, I really feel like the first film didn't. It's one of those movies where it's like, this didn't need a sequel. With the way it ended, like it was perfectly fine, with the way it ended. Like it really didn't need a sequel. But, movie studios, they got to have their money, so. And like I didn't think this was, I mean, it's not a terrible movie. I didn't think it was awful, but like I didn't really think it was great either, to be honest. I mean, because like you were saying, it's a little slow at times, and like I don't know, I just didn't feel like the story was really that interesting. Like I didn't really get as attached to the characters as I did with the original 1954 film. And like I mean, in the fights between Godzilla and Anguirus were those are always fun. But yeah, I mean, really the only reason to really watch this movie is if you're a big Godzilla fan and you want to watch them all. But I mean, if you want to see the first ever fight that Godzilla's ever been in, give it a watch. All right,
Yeah,
Udi. What did you think?
I thought it was I.
You thought it was aight?
Yeah, it
official
was
review there.
perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Official
Just
review. It's aight.
I'm gonna walk up quietly, bunk, 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 pick up the mic. Hello? Yeah, the movie, it was mic drop, walk away. Anyway,
Nice.
yeah, it was okay. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was surprisingly less like I was expecting it to be really silly compared to the 1954 version, but it wasn't. It was still pretty serious. Just not as serious. Like the characters are a bit more fun.
Yeah.
Um, it was in the like it was different obviously because it wasn't like exactly this, but it and especially because of a scene later on in the movie, it really did kind of feel like, what if we take Top Gun but add Godzilla and then another monster, but not
Or
because it's not very Top Gunny.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or what if Top Gun was like, what if we take this movie and just get rid of all the giant monsters and do something of our own? Because this came out way before Top Gun was
I
probably
know.
even a thought.
No, I know. But in my brain, in my modern day brain, that's what it felt like. It was like Top
Okay.
Gun, like 2% of Top Gun, and then just like old Godzilla.
I find it
And then
interesting that you make a Top Gun comparison because I've never really thought about that when watching this movie.
it's really only just because it's like the two pilots, like that's it. And then like that the one scene that we'll I'm assuming talk about later. Um but yeah, that's really it. There's no flight like fighter pilot academy or anything like that. It's just two pilots basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all right. And there were some scenes that again I thought were like very visually interesting, like very well crafted. You can tell there's like a lot of passion and thought behind some of it, and just very striking visuals in some scenes, and other scenes just hilarious, like memeable moments that weren't probably supposed to be funny, but I found hilarious. Um, and you could definitely tell there was a lot more usage of like toys and miniatures in this one. Like at least I
Oh.
think I noticed it a lot more.
Oh, you
Um,
can really notice it in one scene, and you probably know what scene I'm talking about.
like the rocket launcher bombardment of like Godzilla when he's approaching Osaka.
Well, no, because you mentioned toys and miniatures. Well, I mean, I'll save it for a later discussion then, I guess. But keep going.
Oh, okay. But yeah. But outside of that, I was still able to like still mainly like stay immersed in the world and whatever. I did think it was kind of funny. I remember when the scene happened when they were like, "Oh, hey, we're evacuating everyone, even the prisoners in jail." And I was like, "Wow, it's very humane of them. Good for them." And then, of course, the prisoners stage an escape and cause Godzilla to destroy Osaka. And I was like,
Yep.
"Wow,
They also
wow,
died in a very presumably fiery grave.
yeah."
But I wanted to ask you, you said there were a few scenes that were like unintentionally hilarious. What scenes come to mind when you talk about that?
There was like one scene towards the end with Mr. Groom,
Oh
who
yeah.
he was like dive bombing. Well, I think at that point he had gotten atomic breath by Godzilla, and you just
Yeah.
see his like reaction. And I'm like, I am sorry, I am so sorry. You are plummeting to your death, but
A
your
man
face right now.
died, Udi. A man died.
Yeah, but it was funny. All right.
Oh no.
Um,
I can understand that though, because even I thought like the face he makes like right as he's about to crash, like this man is about to like he's literally like about to die, and he just has
yeah.
this like
Ooh.
this yeah like just it doesn't look like he knows he's like it doesn't really that's not the face I think of when that someone would make when they're
When you're
about to die.
plummeting to your death, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then this isn't like it wasn't like, oh my God, this is so funny. But anytime, and it's not. I feel so bad because it's not like a joke or anything. It's just like a word. But every time that I hear Nani, I
Oh,
don't know. It always pulls me out
Nani?
of it. Yeah, because stupid memes. And I'm like, God,
Yeah.
I hate that this word had to become a meme because, or like it's always used in memes because I always think of like random memes. It's like Nani, and I'm like, God,
Nani?
it's just they're just saying a word. It's not a joke. Like,
Yeah.
stay focused. But
No, I can understand that.
yeah,
Well, cause like you had mentioned like the note you noticed more that they were using toys and miniatures earlier, right? You had said something around those lines.
yeah,
Because there's a shot near the end of the movie where Godzilla's on the island that they're bombing to try and
hmm
like bury him. It is like it is one of the worst shots of Godzilla ever. Like there's a YouTube channel, like have you guys heard of Cinemassacre? They're a YouTube channel.
I,
James Rolfe, Angry Video Game Nerd.
I have not. I've
Well
No.
heard
like
of
he
AVGN, but
Okay, yeah. Well, the channel that comes from is the Cinemassacre channel on YouTube, and he
mm,
did a thing called the Godzilla-thon. And in his review of Godzilla Raids Again, he's like, "This movie contains one of the worst shots of Godzilla I've ever seen." It's like, yeah, it is because it's so bad. He's literally just standing still, motionless, as like the camera just goes overhead. It's like, oh God, why?
Okay, so I don't think it was like filmed bad or anything. I listened to another podcast and they're like, yeah, this wasn't like there was some really bad shots in there, but I watched it and it was like fine. Like I don't get this.
Well, because like a lot of the other shots in the movie are fine, but they're like Udi said, sometimes they're just stuff that's just unintentionally hilarious, and it's not meant to be funny, like Mr. Groom's face when he's about to die. But like that shot of Godzilla just doesn't look good because he's just standing. He looks like a statue, like he's not even moving.
They did take the suit actor who was in the suit and cover him in like legit ice. Like that's real ice and snow, so it's not like
Yeah, but he
move
wasn't
or
buried.
anything.
He wasn't buried yet. He was literally just
So
standing out in the open.
I feel like he just stood there
okay.
the whole like last 20 minutes and they're just bombarding him. Like he would move occasionally, but he's like, let me see what they're gonna do. And then he's
Yeah.
like, oh no, I'm trapped. And then he was just buried. What like I don't know, like maybe it's just always cold in those mountains. But my first thought was, what happens when the snow melts?
Oh, you'll see. That's all I'm gonna say is you will see.
Ah,
Hint, hint, hint at the next movie.
yeah. I mean, I figured because I was just like, okay, this is a great temporary solution. Why are we celebrating like it's all over? But
But,
yeah.
but yeah, I just wanted to mention that because yeah, I thought that shot was
The
terrible. But
the scene that, like, stood out to me like, there's a few scenes that, like, I could tell, like, right away it was, like, a toy or something, but, like, the main scene
Well,
that I thought it was yeah.
I was gonna say like the close-ups of Godzilla's face. That's a hand puppet.
oh, is it
Huh.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Also, they put mechanics in the headpiece to get the eyes to move and stuff, although it didn't really
Yeah.
work. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that.
I didn't know like, I didn't notice at first because there was, like, scenes in the original as well where it looked like, Godzilla didn't have, like, pupils or something right. I'm like, "Whoa, he looks so much creepier that way, they should've done him like that." But I think I didn't realize it's not that he didn't have pupils, it's that, like, his eyes were, like, rolled back or they just, like, looked like it was just, like, a weird angle and you couldn't see the pupils or something right away. 'Cause then, like, there were scenes in this one too, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, see, he looks, like, freakier that way," and then I was, like, looking at his eyes, but I was just looking at the whites of his eyes, I was like, "Oh, the pupils right there." I'm like, "Oh, that looks a lot goofier with the
I
people."
I will say there is an iteration of Godzilla that doesn't have pupils, and
Mm.
it's pretty like you said, it is pretty creepy. Spoiler alert, it's my favorite Godzilla movie of all time, but
Oh,
it'll probably be a bit when we get to that one.
yeah.
What
But
era?
yeah,
Is it Shin
it's
Godzilla?
from the Millennium era. No,
Just
Oh,
kidding.
okay.
yeah, so
Be like, oh, way,
but yeah, it'll
way
be
in
a
the
while
future.
before we get to it. But that iteration of Godzilla does not have pupils.
No
So
future spoilers, Daniel.
I was gonna say these movies are from the 50s. They're gonna be full of spoilers. So if you don't like spoilers, then this is not the podcast for you.
yeah,
Well, I just meant,
we
like
tend to spoil these movies wide open. But yeah,
I
I
just
get
meant,
I
like,
Yeah,
get I
I
get
expecting
what you're
future
I know
saying.
what you
movies.
meant
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
But yeah, the scene that stuck out to me the most with like the toys and miniatures and whatnot was when he was attacking Osaka, and especially when they were like shooting like the rocket, like the ground rocket launchers, like with all the tubes. It's just like a bunch of like toy soldiers like set next to them. I'm like, wow, that's like really bad. Like, I mean, it makes sense, but yeah, and then like the tanks are definitely like toys as well. And then I liked some of the planes, like you could see the string and light, and I'm like, that's
Oh
just not a
no.
string. But yeah. But for all intents and purposes, the flying sequences were pretty well done. Like,
Yeah.
especially given the time frame and everything, I thought the in cockpit action and the like just the planes flying, I thought were captured pretty well.
So I do want to comment that I do commend this movie for getting the facts right in terms of what time period the dinosaurs lived in, because it is no longer 2 million years like in the first film. They actually get it right this time and say it was like 75 to 150 million years ago. So I will commend them for that. But then they say that the Ankylosaurus was a very vicious carnivore, which yeah, that's not true. Ankylosaurus was an herbivore. So you win some, you lose some.
They only had time to get like one of the facts right, not all of
Yeah.
them.
One step forward, one step back.
They ran up to the director on the day of shooting, and they're like, "Director, we only have we only have enough time to fix one thing. What's the one thing?" And then he's like, "Fix the time period." And they're like, "All right, we got it."
Yeah.
Speaking of like the toys and stuff, there's a scene when they're like looking at a map, and you know how like they put military or army people or whatever put like little markers on the map to indicate where the troops are or whatever. I like that the fact that they use a little wooden dinosaur toy for Godzilla. I think it's very
Yeah,
cute and adorable.
Uh,
And
I didn't notice that.
yeah,
I thought it was pretty funny, a little
Huh.
silly, goofy.
I'll have to go back and look at that then. I never noticed that. But yeah, I mean, really the main draw of this movie is just the fight between Godzilla and Anguirus. And once we once you see that fight happen, which by the way, Godzilla completely annihilates Anguirus. like he stood no chance. Like it was a complete and utter domination.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. So, poor Anguirus, but oh well, this won't be the first time. Yeah, he tried. He tried his best. This won't be the first time that we or this won't be the last time is what I meant to say. This won't be the last time that we see Anguirus. He's usually on and off about being either an ally or an enemy against Godzilla. So we will see him in future movies, especially here in the Showa era. But I did find it funny, like some of Anguirus's movements were like weird, like during the fight in Osaka, like when Godzilla was using his atomic breath on Anguirus, he was just like circling his head around. Like I know they were doing that to kind of make it seem like, hey, he's getting like fire, breathed in his face, so he's gonna have like an adverse reaction to it. But then there were other times when it just cuts to Anguirus and he's still doing that weird circular head motion and like nothing's happening.
Yeah,
It's like, well, what are you doing?
he's building up his stamina.
Yeah, I guess so.
because he doesn't have like powers or anything, right? He's just a
No,
normal
not
dinosaur.
really. I mean, he can curl up into a ball, but that's not until like later movies. So, and then in the Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee video game, so like when it came to like the monsters you could play as, like they all had like breath attacks, but since Anguirus didn't really have a breath attack, they just gave him like a really loud roar. So I guess technically you could say he has that as well.
Deafening roar.
Yeah, it was like a supersonic roar or whatever.
I feel like this movie was the Batman versus Superman of its time. It was
What
like,
way?
I mean, in my head, because I don't know what the marketing was for like, or was like for it, but uh, it was like marketed as like Godzilla versus his first big opponent, and then they fight for 5 minutes, and then except in Batman versus Superman, they become friends. In this one, he's just dead, and then they fight Godzilla for like 20 more minutes at the end.
Uh, Godzilla also isn't standing over Anguirus, wondering why he muttered the name Martha.
Boy, wouldn't that
Why
have been
did
a
you say
twist?
that name? I like that because when Godzilla versus Kong was coming out, there was people making all types of memes, like Godzilla was about to like kill Kong, and then Kong's like, "We gotta save Mothra." Why did you say that name?
That's a funny joke. I like that one.
Yeah.
I
But
mean, this was basically, I believe, the first kaiju versus kaiju, first like monster versus monster movie. So like maybe Batman v Superman is a ripoff of this.
well, I mean, Batman and Superman aren't giant monsters, so I don't
Well,
know
you
about that
know,
one. I don't know about that one, but I mean,
they
well,
do
yeah,
destroy a lot of stuff.
yeah. Well, I mean, Superman
So
did in Man of Steel, but I mean, that's besides the point. But like I don't know, like because you could say, yeah, arguably this is the first like major kaiju versus kaiju movie. Because I'm trying to think if there was anything else before this. I mean, like King Kong fought a T-Rex in his 1933 movie, but I mean, that it's not like that was that was just a T-Rex that happened to be on the island. It wasn't another monster made specifically for the movie. So arguably, yeah, you could say it is the first like major like kaiju versus kaiju movie, which I mean, hey, it spawned a genre.
definitely. I think one of you mentioned like the fighting and the choreography um for Anguirus, and I mean they tried, like it probably was really hard to think and fight while being on your arms and knees in a
Yeah.
suit like that. So the working with what they had movement wise, and although this Godzilla suit was like lighter, I'm pretty sure they still couldn't see anything. So
Now, was this a different suit, or did they use? I think this was a different suit. They didn't use the same suit that was from the '54 original, did they?
yeah, it's a different suit.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. I mean, I thought the fighting. Yeah, I was gonna say I thought the fighting was fine. Like, I mean, like you said, they did the best that they could with what they had, and a lot of it is just like Godzilla and Anguirus is just getting up and kind of like slapping each other, you know. But I mean, for the time, I thought the fighting was fine. We get it, like I said, we get that one decent fight scene in Osaka out of it. So,
Yeah, there was definitely a number of silly moments, but yeah, I think
oh, just
just
wait,
trying to. Oh yeah,
just
I
wait
know.
for the other Godzilla
Eat
movies,
your
man.
eat your broccoli. Um,
Yeah.
no, but given like putting yourself in like the headspace of like, okay, this is made in the 50s, like it's like the first of its kind, blah 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 blah. It's not that bad. Like
Yeah,
I can
it
see
is.
what they were going for, and trying to put myself in like a state of mind where it's like, okay, I've never seen any other big monster movie fight before. Let me erase my memory, and then like watching it's like, okay, like it's spectacle. It's not super impressive spectacle by today's standards, but it's
Yeah.
still pretty well done. Like I like the usage of like miniatures and stuff like that. And even though it was more noticeable here, I still thought they did a pretty good job. So
And like you said, you said it's spectacle. That's once again going to reiterate the main draw of this movie is the spectacle.
yeah,
You watch it for the Godzilla and Anguirus fight,
yeah.
not so much for the love drama that's going on with the human characters. Like, I don't know. I was kind of confused with that. So Mr. Groom, that girl that he was keeping in his wallet, were we supposed to know who that was? Was that one of the characters? Or is that just some random girl that he liked?
I think it's supposed to be the main girl, but I
Is
was
it?
confused about that too because I was
Mhm.
like, I can't tell if that's supposed to be her or not.
Yeah,
And
I don't.
I was listening to a podcast about this movie in my researching, and they're like, yeah, it was supposed to be him, and there's this love triangle. But then I was like, but I didn't think that. So I wanted to get your guys' opinions on that. Like, what did you guys
Yeah, I
think?
was. See, I was kind of, like I said, I was kind of confused by that scene because I wasn't sure who that was supposed to be. And if it was supposed to be a love triangle, they didn't really do a good job of conveying that because the whole time I had no idea that Mr. Groom even liked the main girl. I don't remember her name, unfortunately, but like it's already established that she is the main love interest for the other main character. What's his name? Like Sukiyaka or something? Yeah, I don't remember his name. Hold on. Let me.
I will just say I like towards the end, like as like especially after like the main fight, and it's like the post. It's like the coming down kind of from like the main fight after like Godzilla wins, and then it's like somewhat peaceful. I was kind of getting the vibe that Mr. Groom liked her, but also like they just still seemed like friends. So I was like,
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
he did kind of flirt with her here and there, but I always figured, yeah, he was just being like, friendly with her.
yeah.
I guess he was being a little too friendly, huh?
But yeah, they didn't really do a good job portraying like a love triangle because I never
No,
really
they didn't.
got that exact vibe. Like I said, like I picked up like, does he like her? But I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, because like she was, I never really got like too much of a vibe from her though, because she was like, oh, I still haven't found like a woman to love, blah 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 blah. Like kind of seeming to like trying to like help him or like, supportive or something, but not like I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think we can all agree that if that's what the message they were trying to convey there, they could have done better.
yeah. So the main character's name, I'm gonna butcher this, but it's I'll just spell it out. It's Tsukioka. That's his
Okay,
last
so
name.
so it was Sukiyaka then. Okay.
Okay, yeah, Sukiyaka. And
Yeah.
then the main woman lead, her name is Hidemi, or
Did they
however
ever
you say.
mention her name in the movie? Not because like I don't really remember like them saying her name. I don't know. Maybe I just
Hidemi Yamaji. Hidemi Yamaji. I don't remember really hearing her name.
yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking back, it's like, did they ever once like mention her name? They probably did, but I don't know. I guess it just didn't stick for whatever reason.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was surprised to see Dr. Yamane again.
Oh yeah.
I
He's
saw him
the
like,
one returning character. Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
and Godzilla, but it's a different one, so
Yeah, well, they make a direct reference to the first film with the whole showing of like stock footage from the first movie in the conference room.
yeah. I thought that
Thus,
was pretty cool.
yeah,
I liked that scene.
yeah, thus reiterating, yes, this is supposed to be a sequel.
like remember that really good movie you saw 6 months ago? Just think about that one and not this one. Although this one again wasn't bad or anything, but the director of the original didn't want a sequel, or like said that the original was a standalone. So this one's maybe a unwanted, unneeded sequel. So apparently that has happened for ages now, not just our current era of film of getting unwanted sequels, but it happened all the way back in the 50s. So I guess that's not new.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, is there really much anything else to say about this movie? Like, I feel like we pretty much covered all that we really could.
Like I said, it was pretty aight.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I have the one Top Gun thing I wanted to bring up.
Oh yeah. Lay it on us.
So literally, like when they're planning out how to like attack, like, all right, we're gonna cause an avalanche and bury Godzilla. The way they explain the attack is literally exactly how they explain the attack in Top Gun Maverick when they're like they
You
have to do
know,
like the valley thing and then they have to like the hardest part is gonna be getting out over the crest of the mountaintop before you crash. I'm like, this
I
is literally
did
Top Gun Maverick.
I did think about Top Gun Maverick when they were doing that scene. I was like, "Oh, hey, that kind of reminds me of Top Gun Maverick." Very interesting.
Yeah. I was like, did Christopher McQuarrie like one night at like 2 a.m. put on Godzilla Raids Again when he was like he just like I need to finish this final draft. Oh my God, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And then just like fell asleep and then 3 hours later was like, oh I got it. They'll do this final attack and the hardest part is gonna be getting out of the valley without crashing at the end. And then boom, he finished the movie and it was to critical acclaim, one of the highest grossing movies of last year and it was actually just a ripoff of Godzilla Raids Again. I figured out your secret, McHugh.
Old kaiju movies. Get your ideas from them.
I haven't seen Top Gun or the Top Gun Maverick or whatever, but I don't think like is it just because of the planes and that plot point? Or is there like more to it that I'm like missing in this movie or that movie or something?
well,
Like,
well,
it's just that one scene, but the way that they plan out the attack is literally like, I might literally consider editing or finding some way to like edit the two clips down and just like put them side by side for you because it's like almost identical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fascinating. That's
yeah.
interesting. I wonder if we'll see like more similarities as we go through Godzilla movies and other movies that we'll watch since
Yeah, I
we're
don't know.
looking at these like more in a quote unquote critical way or objective way. If we're gonna start seeing more similarities like that, because
Yeah, I don't know. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. I like things like this if we get more moments like this. I do like part of me wonders is it just like a happy coincidence? Like people think of like the same ideas just like over long periods of time or whatever. Like is it just that thing or is it just like one of those things where like you watch something once totally forget about it, but it's like stuck in the recesses of your mind. And then like way later down the road, like you think you like came up with like a unique idea, like, ah yes, I'm so creative, but really you're just stealing from something you don't even realize that you're stealing from.
Yeah, I don't know.
Guess we'll
I
never
mean,
find out.
they say these days that nothing is ever really a completely original idea.
Oh yeah,
It always stems
absolutely.
from something else, you know. So,
Yeah.
and the
Or
concept of flying a plane out of a mountain isn't like totally unique.
no. It's just like I said, it was just the way that they were explaining the plan, like, to the point
Yeah.
of, like, the hardest part is gonna be getting out of there before we crash into, like, the peak. I was like, "This is Top Gun Maverick."
Well,
But
Mr. Groom failed that part of the mission. That's for sure.
he was too busy being in a love triangle. He was blinded by love.
Oh my god.
But, yeah, if you guys wanna see, I didn't do the extra homework. I was going to, and I didn't, but if you guys wanna discuss the American version, be my guest.
Because Miranda, didn't you have something you wanted to say real quick before we moved on?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't remember what it is, so we could move on.
I didn't know if you had any
No.
like fun facts or anything to share.
Oh, I mean, I do, if you guys want to hear them now.
Of course.
Yeah, sure. Lay
Okay.
it on us.
I have a whole book of fun facts. Um, the suit actor for Godzilla lost 20 pounds in order to fit into the Godzilla suit.
Oh wow.
Yeah. The American version of this movie contains no footage of the actual movie in it.
Wait, what?
Yeah. The American trailer contains no scenes from the
Oh,
movie.
you said the Okay, you're talking about the trailer. I thought you were talking about the movie for a sec. I was like, oh, what?
No. Yeah, the trailer. The movie
Okay.
contains scenes from the Japanese one, although they
Yeah,
also shoved a bunch of stock footage in it, but
they do.
we'll get to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, the director wanted the fight scenes to be in slow motion, but the camera technician accidentally sped up the footage, so the scenes were in
Whoops.
fast motion. And this book says that the director liked it and kept it in,
That's funny.
or they ran out of time and didn't have time to go back, so they just stuck with it. I don't think we actually know the answer, so
I like to think that the director liked it and just stuck with it because that's funnier to me.
yeah.
I was gonna ask about that, but we can talk about that after this.
And then just another small fun fact. And this is the only film where Godzilla's dorsal plates don't glow before he does his fire
Oh,
atomic breath attack.
wow.
Huh.
All my years of watching this, I've seen this movie multiple times. I never realized that. Very interesting. They
Yep.
probably didn't have the budget.
Oh, I have another one. It says there's a shot of Godzilla from a plane where he's standing still. In this shot, the monster's actually a wind-up toy. The toy was meant to be wound up and released so it would walk around. It looked so fake that they kept Godzilla still in this shot. It is one of the most awkward moments all of the movies, and there's plenty more to come.
Wait, so him walking around looked more fake, so they just decided to keep him motionless.
Yep, so that
Oh my
explains
god.
the scene we were talking about.
That's just a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation right there.
Be like, make it look like he's a wind-up toy, or just let him stand still. I
Yeah.
think the standing still is better.
Uh, uh I guess.
So yeah, those are my fun facts.
All right.
So if we wanted to talk about the one thing, was it the motion that you wanted to talk about, Udi?
Oh yeah, it was. Well, I guess the first question. Well, I guess it's kind of answered, but like the first part, I was gonna be like, why were they like so quick in some scenes? Like they were like sped up, and that answers that question.
Well, there you go. Yep.
Um, but I guess like the other thing I guess I was gonna ask you guys of like what you thought. Like, do you think it looks better? 'Cause, like that style of like shooting them fighting happens in other movies too, right? Like it wasn't just this one where they're like kind of sped up.
Yeah, I would say there's a few scenes in other Showa era films where they kind of are speeding up the fight scenes.
Do you think you would look better in slow-mo or, like, regular speed, or do you think there's, like, something to it that makes it seem a bit more, like, unnatural?
I think it fits the styles of the movie, honestly, like cheesy rubber suit giant monster fights, you speed up the footage. I think it kind of fits the style. Not saying that it's good, that's not a great effect or anything, but it fits the style.
I mean,
Fair.
they look kind of weightless. You don't feel
Yeah,
like the weight or gravity on them, so like when they're in the slower motion, it feels they feel like heavy,
Yeah.
which like the bigger object it is, the slower it's gonna like move, I think. Um,
it's like Pacific Rim 1 versus Pacific Rim 2.
Or
I've
heck,
only seen the
even
first
Godzilla
one.
2014 versus Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019, that is.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that too. That is a more apt comparison. But yeah,
Are there
Oh,
like
I
we just all tried to talk at the same time right there. Awesome.
great podcasting?
Yeah.
All right, who wants to go?
Well, well, let's find out what everybody wanted to say first. What did you want to say, Udi?
Honestly, I don't remember. You go.
Okay. Well, what did you want to say then, Miranda? Because I want to go into the American cut. So if you guys want to say anything else about the original, like Japanese Godzilla Raids Again, now's the time to do it.
I'm cool with going into the American one.
All right. So let's talk about the American re-release of Godzilla Raids Again, also known as Gigantus the Fire Monster. Now, your question might be, why the hell is Godzilla called Gigantus in this movie? Well, that is because the American producers did not want the audience to think that this was the same monster from the first Godzilla film, which would have been for American audiences at least Godzilla King of the Monsters. And that is because that Godzilla died. So how can you just have another Godzilla? It's not another Godzilla. It's a different monster that just so happens to look exactly like Godzilla. But his
But
name's not
doesn't
Godzilla. What?
but doesn't sound like Godzilla because
No,
they
it
didn't
doesn't
use
sound like.
Godzilla's roar. They
No,
used
they used
Anguirus'
yeah, they used
roar.
Anguirus's roar for some reason. But yeah, he's not called Godzilla, he's called Gigantus. And yeah, that's the first thing that's odd about this re-release is yeah, like you said, Miranda, they don't use Godzilla's roar. Now, if you listen carefully, there are a couple times when you can hear the original 1954 roar in some scenes. But it's like you said, most of the time they're using Anguirus's roar. And I think the reason why they're doing that is one, once again, to differentiate this Godzilla from the Godzilla from the original. But it's explained in the movie. Like there are multiple times when they refer to Godzilla, or I guess I'll just call him Gigantus. There are multiple times when they refer to Gigantus as part of the Anguirus family. Like Anguirus isn't necessarily the name of the monster, it's the name of the family that the species comes from. So they're part of this like the Anguirus species or whatever, which is odd. And like yeah, it's called Gigantus the Fire Monster because they kind of do the like conference scene differently instead of just showing well they still show the stock footage of Godzilla destroying Tokyo from the first movie, but they also give a little backstory, I guess. Like it's funny because it's like what you're seeing now is the creation of the world. It's like, "Oh, how'd you get that footage?" So
Yeah, they're like, here's the creation of the world. And also
yeah.
here is footage of stop motion dinosaurs from other movies. Oh, and actual real lizards that are just like giant lizards because they used to like just or they composited lizards onto film to make them look larger so that they would be like the monsters before they like did the stop motion, or probably the same time they were doing stop motion and before suitmation was like created for the Godzilla movies. And they
Yeah.
just like put a bunch of stock footage in there, and it starts with an atomic bomb explosion. They take out all of the original score and put like stock music score in it,
Hmm.
and there's so much there's so much narration in this film that it's
Dude,
like the definition of tell, don't show.
I was just about to bring that up. They literally narrate every part of this movie. It's like, was this necessary? Like, do they really think American audiences are this dumb? Like, we don't need narration for like every single part of the movie. Now, I did appreciate the narration at times because it did give us a little backstory that wasn't really given in the original film. Like, they because in the original movie, like they show Sukioka and Mr. Groom just flying over the ocean, and you can kind of gauge, okay, they're looking for fish, because then you see them call right away and say, hey, we found the fish. But at least in this movie, they explain what their jobs are. They go and they scout for fish, and then they call it in to the sailors so they can go catch it. So I did appreciate the narration in some areas, but yeah, it was just way too much. It's like we don't need literally every single second of this movie narrated. But
Yeah,
yeah.
but that's what they did. I don't think
Exactly.
they thought Americans were dumb. I just think they wanted to make the original idea was to remake the whole movie and call it the Volcano Monsters. So
Oh, really?
they were just working with what they had. Although the company that was supposed to make that movie uh closed its doors, went bankrupt or something, one of those terms there. So they actually Toho sent over the suits and they got lost because that company stopped existing, and apparently someone found it and it was all like battered and torn up and like blown up and like fire holes in it. So like they
Oh,
did not.
dang.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true. That's just what I heard on the internet. So
I will say, because while we were on the subject previously, when Udi had mentioned unintentionally funny moments, there's a very funny, like unintentional funny moment in the American re-release. It's the scene where the police are transporting the prisoners, and like the part in the original where like they start their breakout, and then the cop driving is like, hey, what's going on back there? And they're like, oh, one of the prisoners had a seizure or whatever. You remember that scene?
mhm.
Well, in
Yeah.
the American one, it's like, hey, what's going on back there? Oh, one of the other prisoners is freaking out again. And the cop's response is, what a guy. Like, what? That's your response?
This American version is really it's got some interesting dialogue in it.
Yeah, it does. What a guy. But yeah, unlike Godzilla King of the Monsters, Gigantus the Fire Monster is more or less just the exact same film as Godzilla Raids Again. There are a few little things that they add that weren't in the original, and they do like change up some of a little bit. Just they change up a little bit of the story, because obviously in the original, Godzilla is just another Godzilla, and Anguirus is like an ancient ankylosaurus. But in this one, they say that they're fire monsters from the Anguirus family, so they change a little things up. But other than that, it's largely the same movie. So much so that there are actually versions of Gigantus the Fire Monster that are just renamed to Godzilla Raids Again. So technically, Godzilla Raids Again does have like an official quote unquote dub. They just took Gigantus the Fire Monster, renamed it Godzilla Raids Again, and I think kind of like took out some of like the references to Gigantus in there. Like I think there's a few newspaper headlines that talk about like Gigantus. I think they took those out, but I don't know. I haven't watched that like quote unquote edited version in a while. So, but yeah,
Fascinating. I didn't know that.
yep.
Yeah, so I don't have much more to say about it, so we can move on to the lizard facts, or if you have anything else to say, or if Udi has anything to say about either versions, we could do that.
Well, I mean, I think I've pretty much gotten all my thoughts of the American cut out there. Although I will say, Udi, you should look up that scene with the cops transporting the prisoner, because I think you would get a kick out of it.
Probably, yeah. From what you were describing, I was like, yeah, that'd probably be pretty funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really. I mean, I didn't watch the American version, so and I didn't really have a lot of thoughts on the original version. Like it was all right.
All right, Miranda, what is our lizard fact of the day?
I picked this lizard because it kind of reminded me of Anguirus, and then you said that he can roll up into a ball, which makes this a perfect one because it's the armadillo lizard. The armadillo lizard is from the northern and western Capes provinces of South Africa, and it inhabits rocks and mountain slopes. And it's a light to dark brown colored lizard with a yellow and black pattern underbelly, and it like looks like a armadillo shell, so it has like the scales on it, and then it like also I think can roll into a ball like an armadillo. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I'm gonna have to see what this thing looks like.
Yeah. I'll post it on our Instagram.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks. If you want to see what this very cool sounding lizard looks like, you can go check that out on our Instagram at Atomic Lizards Pod.
Yeah, I guess we can move on to our ratings.
I guess I'll go first. So, I'm going to give this 2.5 stars. Once again, it's an okay movie, but to me personally, it's pretty below average.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 2.5 as well. Basically for the exact same reasons. It's fine, maybe a little lacking. It doesn't really have much in the form of like you're not really getting anything from the narrative. I mean, it's doing what it set out to do. It's a little silly sometimes. It's technically impressive at moments. Has some neat shots. Has some very funny shots. So yeah, 2.5.
So my rating would be 2.5 out of 5.
Oh wow, we all agree
Nice.
on this one.
I think we can all agree it's a movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a movie.
Like this movie is only like an hour and a half or so, but I found it pretty long in some places. The pacing, it could be a pacing issue. It could also be like the long fights or the lack of score that just really didn't hold my attention. The fact that it was made in 6 months is absolutely amazing. I think for being made in 6 months, it's a great movie. It's just not the greatest movie. I will, I guess, would the math on that be 2.5 out of 5?
So we got you the easiest math to do. No math.
Yeah,
No
no
math.
math at all.
All right, so the Atomic Lizard's official rating for Godzilla Raids Again is 2.5 out of 5.
Join us next time as we will be looking at another epic kaiju battle, this time with a familiar face. We'll be looking at King Kong versus Godzilla.
Thank you so much for joining us and listening to our conversation about Godzilla Raids Again. If you're interested in hearing more, check out our previous episodes, and you can find us on Instagram at Atomic Lizards Pod and on Letterboxd at Atomic_Lizards.